This is Rick McPartland. I'm the founder of the Revenue Game and the creator of Revenue Science, and I'm glad you're here for our Revenue Science, a context of business. And today specifically, we are going to talk about the fact that Revenue Science is the context for your business. Whatever business you're in, it's Revenue Science, and whether you choose to follow it or not, it will dictate what happens. And when we think about context for revenue in particular, the research is very clear. There's only one thing that will almost to 100% level assure your survival. And that one thing is, can you continually produce more sales and profits? If you can do that, you not only get to survive, but you probably get to thrive. Context in general really matters. Economics is the context for wealth. Medical science is the context for health. And revenue science is the context for business survival. And of course, you have to survive first before you can succeed and thrive. And like medical science and economics, but medical science is an easy example, when you think about the context is always the same, but you get to have your version of it. Because when you're a newborn, your version of medical science is very different than when you're an 85-year-old. So the context stays structurally the same, but your version is different. So let's take a look at, one of the reasons this is so important is because the world out there is bombarding you with things you should do. You should have this vitamin, you should take this class, you should buy this book, you should get this training, you need this software. And the truth is, it's noise until you apply it inside your context. And some of these noise factors are not just distracting and expensive, some of them are dangerous. Some of these can actually be so harmful that they can almost put you out of business if you're not careful. But there's others that if you don't pay attention to them, if you don't recognize change, if you don't have a revenue strategy, if you're not conscious of your thought leadership and some of these others, you're not going to be very successful and may not survive at all. So what exactly does your context look like? Well, it looks like a map. And the map always starts down there where you see that explosion in yellow. That's really those humans out there in the world, and they may be part of an entrepreneurship or a family at home, or they could be part of the biggest company in the world, but they're humans who need whatever it is that you're doing. And they're the ones who determine your value, and they're going to determine how much of this you're going to sell. So when you think about it, it's your offer, and we'll teach you about offers in another session, that is going to travel this roadmap. And it's really either going to attract and encourage people to hopefully easily, rapidly, consistently, and predictably go through this roadmap. This is your context, and you get to build it. And once you build it, and you can either build it intentionally or you can just hope it shows up, but we're going to suggest build it intentionally. The way you're going to manage and measure is you're measuring for the volume that goes through it, how many customers, how many transactions, how many deals, the velocity, how fast do they go through, and value. And the value starts with the value you give to the customer, and then proceeds to the value the customer will pay you for in return for what you gave them. Now, this roadmap, this context, for Amazon online, the whole thing can happen in 3 or 4 minutes. But if you're selling complex business solutions, it could take 2 years. That's why yours is unique. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about your context, the way you manage it across your roadmap are based on the metrics of volume, how many deals, velocity, how fast do they go through, and value, how much do you give to your customer and how much do they pay you in return. So you have to start with one question. Before we can go any farther, you have to answer one question. When your customers think of you, do they think of you as a value-added thought leader or a vendor who sells them stuff cheap? In other words, Do you know things, or can you do things that makes your customer better off because they worked with you than any other choice they could make? That's the first thing for you to know, because when you know that, and you may have seen this curve before, either with us or other people call it the diffusion of innovation curve. On the right side of it, you'll see is where copy paper is purchased. It's about transactions, price, and availability, where the left-hand side is all about thought leadership and the value that your brain and your process and your intellectual property brings to that customer. So we're going to have you place yourself up here. On the left-hand side, your context tends to be lower volume, lower velocity, and extremely high value, because it's complex over here. You're solving problems your customer didn't even think they could solve. As you move to the center, well, the volume goes up, the velocity goes up, and there's lots of stuff going on. And the value starts to go down, but you're still getting paid pretty well because you still know stuff that your customer doesn't know. And you can do things they need you to do for them. By the time you get all the way over into track 5, your volume is high, your velocity is high, and your margin's pretty low because the value is low. The value is about price and availability, because there's lots of other people who have copy paper to sell. So this is the first thing you have to decide, is where you fit on this curve, because once you know where you fit on the curve, you get to build a revenue strategy. And your revenue strategy is how you make your context unique. And you have to answer 5 questions. And these are the 5 questions. You'll notice they're in different colors. The first 2 are the color of your strategy. These are questions that leaders, owners, people help define the company, define who our customer is going to be, define how will we be viewed in the market. The next 2 questions say, okay, if we're really able to solve this problem for the customer that no one else is solving, what niche should we dominate? And who is our ideal customer in that niche? And those are deployment questions. You know, once we know what the strategy is, our question becomes, given our resources to go into the market, where should we deploy? And deployment is all those things like, who do we hire? What's our software requirements? Do we need buildings? Do we need tools? Do we need machines? Whatever it is we need, so that question 5, which is actually taking our offers into the market, the people we hire to execute have everything they need in place so that they can do nothing but execute at the highest possible level. So as you think about your context, these 3 colors come back. You have to have this organizational revenue strategy piece, which always has to be from the buyer's frame of reference and always has to have your thought leadership component. You can choose to have no thought leadership, in which case you're on the right-hand side and you better be good at price and availability, because you're not going to make much in value. The second is you got to have a deployable structure. Having a strategy, but you don't hire the right people, you don't have the right software, you don't have the right messaging, you don't have the right ad campaign, whatever those things aren't in existence, you can't hire people good enough at the execution level to make your strategy real. And since there's no deployment structure, they're never going to be aligned to what your strategy really is. And then you'll notice number 4 is continuous improvement, which is really part of deployment. So there's this requirement, no matter how good you're executing today, no matter how well your deployment strategy is working to make sure your strategy is knocking it out of the park, the world's going to change tomorrow. And you better have an intentional process so that you can continue to evolve your context in order to take advantage of those changes. Now, if you decide that you want some help in this, we would love to help you. 2 of the things we do all the time, one is we call it certify. We help get you educated, trained, so that these things I'm talking about become second nature to you. The other thing that we do all the time is we can be an outsourced resource. We can be outsourced chief revenue officer, digital agencies. We can help you hire. We can help you with all kinds of things that align you and your team and your context to your strategy and to your market. Thanks for joining us. Please reach out if I can help you, and I look forward to hearing from you, at least at the next session. Bye.